regrets only turn into sleepless nights, right? It's hard to turn a regret into an opportunity.
On this episode of The Growth Apprentice, we talk about what really brings happiness.
I had everything I could have wanted. I had a 4-hour work week business that I didn't work in that was making plenty of money for what I needed. A beautiful wife and beautiful house and cars and all the stuff. I realized I wasn't happy. I had to find another way. I had to go through the dark night of the soul to find some of that.
Why you need to look inward for self-improvement.
Bring awareness to the beliefs that are getting in your way, to the voices in your head, the self-talk, the saboteurs that are getting in your way. You attract people at your level. So if you're able to raise your level, then you get to attract someone at a higher level.
And more.
Action happens when your excitement is greater than the fear. The great thing about failures is that they can be turned into opportunities. My number one recommendation is...
I'm Samuel Law, and this is The Growth Apprentice. Bryan, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you on today.
Okay, thank you, Samuel. Excited to be here. Yeah, I'm curious about our conversation and see where it goes.
Yeah. So, Bryan, in order to understand the work that you do, what do I need to understand about you?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think, something that's impacted the work I do and something that would help you understand my perspective on life and this experience we have of being human is the fact that I spent half of my childhood overseas. My dad was in oil, and we moved around every 1 to 3 years from Egypt to Singapore to Louisiana to India, Dubai, and then to Houston. And I think having those experiences at an unconscious level, somewhat conscious, but also unconscious level, really impacted how I view the world. Those experiences of different ways of living lives and seeing people who have far less than we do be happy and be more joyful than the average American, I think has really impacted my view of how I want to live my life. And also how I help others live their lives.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. That kind of leads into my next question. What do you consistently see, like habits or like daily disciplines in the lives of people that do seem to, be living great lives and they are happy?
Yeah. A practice that took me a while and a couple of tries to really get started was a reflection practice or a series of reflection practices. So, I see in people that I admire and I follow, and also in myself and also in the clients I work with, meditation and journaling are two great practices to build the awareness, practice acceptance and forgiveness in order to go out into the world and create from a clean slate. I think culturally, Americans are really great at creating, but sometimes we do so from a place of limited awareness and limited acceptance. But yeah, meditation and journaling are practices that have served me. And with any client I work with, I try and get them to start those practices if they don't have them already. There's also what I call Maslow's basement of right. You're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy, and I call Maslow's basement sleep, diet, and exercise. So you need good nutrition, quality sleep, and regular exercise in order to function at a high level. So I think reflection practices combined with sleep, diet, and exercise can really help people go far in life.
Yeah. Throughout your life, when did you realize that those were things that you needed to be doing?
Yeah, I'll speak to meditation. In my 20s, I had gone on some meditation retreats. I wanted to be a spiritual person. I wanted to be a meditator, and I tried, and I didn't get it. And then I had a spiritual crisis and awakening in my 30s that was really the first time that meditation and journaling stuck for me. I understood, how they could serve me and help me get through that period that I was going through. Um, and and now I've been meditating over a decade on average about every other day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm pretty proud of that.
That's really cool. And what impact has that had for you, just daily or semi-daily meditation?
Yeah. The impact I see on myself and people I work with is I can show up more in my authentic self, more grounded and centered and calm, rather than lost in my head, feeling insecurity or fear. So it allows me to show up in a better place than I otherwise would. I was talking to a client just last week, and he was sharing. He's starting a meditation and journaling practice, and uh, he noticed how much more productive he was at work when he on the days he meditated, and then there was a day or two he didn't meditate and journal, and he noticed, well, those days he felt off. And that's the funny thing is like is once you really get into a practice like that, you really begin to see how it can impact your day, and you can't unsee that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been experimenting a little bit with meditation recently because I just noticed I was struggling to form sentences and I was distracted a lot. Yeah, daily meditation has been it's cool what just focusing for 10 or 20 minutes on something can do for your mental clarity.
Yeah, and what kind of meditation do you do?
Yeah, so I've been doing NSDR, the Andrew Huberman one. It's like a 20-minute track that plays. And yeah, what kind do you do?
All kinds. I've been playing with loving kindness meditation, also called meta meditation recently. I heard about a study where it was the most impactful kind of meditation on one ways of being. And are you familiar with loving kindness meditation?
No, I'm not. Can you give me a little overview on that?
Yeah, it's so there's lots of different types of meditation, and what I tell the people I work with is hey, just do what works for you. At the end of the day, doing a little bit of something or doing something, in your own way, if that's working for you, great, do that, right? Um, there's mindfulness based, there's Buddhist based, there's transcendental. The one you're speaking to, I'm not familiar with. There's focusing on a candle, a flame, right? Um, so I've been playing with loving kindness. I'd say over, the last decade plus of having a regular practice, more of, yeah, most of that has been um, awareness building or mindfulness based. Um, so uh, you know, trying to notice thoughts as they come into my head and let them, right, and coming back to my breath. But I've tried a lot of different meditations and meditation retreats and practices. And sometimes I switch it up. Sometimes I'll do a led meditation, and other times I'll just want silence.
Yeah. Yeah, I love what you're saying about, finding the one that works for you. Because, like, for me, when it comes to fitness and stuff like that, what works for me that I enjoy doing and showing up for is like I enjoy just basic weightlifting and that's good for me. But for other people, it might look completely different. And just finding the one you're going to stick to, that's the best meditation or exercise practice, is what I found.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like my dad didn't have a regular meditation practice, but he ran miles a day. And and that was his meditation, right? And that worked really well for him and where he was at in life.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you do, fitness wise to stay in shape and, be able to be present for others?
Yeah. Um, I have found 4 to 5 exercising 4 to 5 times per week is what helps me again, uh, be more present, be more grounded and centered. Um, I do, well, this year I started doing more weightlifting. I've been doing weightlifting for the last couple of years, got back into it a couple of years ago, and that's been great. Um, had a I had a DEXA scan, which is like a full body kind of body fat scan. You lay on a table, and it's like a scanner goes over your body, and it was eye opening, and so that inspired me to start kind of upping some of my fitness regimen. So I do strength training about twice a week and will run, swim, bike, or rock climb, you know, 2 or 3 times a week. And
Yeah.
so I like to
Yeah,
mix it up.
that's awesome, I like it. It sounds like a good routine you got put together.
Yeah.
So, a lot
It's fun.
of
I have fun. That's the important thing is like finding
yeah,
a way to make these things, fun. And every now and then I'll mix it up and I'll go run in a new place or, um, in the summer we go to Colorado. We'll spend summers in Colorado to get away from the Texas heat and, do lots of hikes and lots of mountain biking. And it's awesome to have that and to look forward to that each year.
yeah, yeah, I like that. A lot of a lot of guys, they probably feel or not probably, I know there's a lot that feel kind of directionless and purpose. What advice would you give to them? Because I know that's in your area of expertise.
Yeah. Um, First of all, I wanna acknowledge how common that is. It's okay to feel, like you don't know where to go. That's a good start. Not knowing, right, is a good starting place. Um, when my purpose has shifted because from when I was a kid up until my early 30s, I wanted to invent things. I wanted to products, and I got to do that, which was awesome. But my purpose shifted after that spiritual crisis awakening I was mentioning, and that's what led me to coaching. And when I was trying to figure out what to do, because there was years where I wasn't sure what to do after I realized I wasn't interested in inventing any longer in product development, uh, and I wasn't sure what to do. Um, there's a tool. I think I've heard it called the hedgehog tool, and you look at what you really love to do. What brings joy to your heart, where you find flow, what you're really good at, what people say you're really good at, where you notice you've had a lot of success, and what people will pay you to do. I would just journal. I remember being on a beach on this kind of sabbatical in between, these two businesses, and I was on a beach just journaling. What do I really love to do? What am I really good at? What can I do that will make money? Because you need money to live. Thinking about that and journaling and reflecting on those 3 areas and finding the intersection of those 3 points.
Yeah, yeah. And then what did it look like for you to go from journaling daily about it to actually taking action and building a business?
Um, I built a couple of businesses, most of them unsuccessful, a couple successful, which was enough to to make up for the unsuccessful ones. For that particular so that was before I got into coaching. Um, for me, once uh yeah, so I was thinking about what should I start? Should I help entrepreneurs in Cuba, right? Should I start a yoga studio? Because I was really into yoga at the time um, and eventually got my yoga teacher training. And, what should I do? And an idea popped in my head. Well, the first idea was I was reading someone's biography and that person's their purpose in life was to raise human consciousness. And I was like, oh, that's awesome, that purpose really resonated with me. So I just, great artist steal, so I stole that purpose. um and then once I realized that, I had this idea from a conversation I had had with my sister to look into maybe coach training. And I had worked with a life coach. I had hired a life coach to work with my employees and paid for my employees to work with a life coach. So I knew the value of coaching and life coaching. And so I had this idea, would anyone listen to a 30 something? You know, and I wasn't sure. But the moment I started looking further into it, I went to there's an accreditation body, ICF, and once I started looking at training programs, there was one that just spoke to me. I mean, there was 400 programs, and there was one that really stood out to me, and it had classes starting the next week. And so to me, it was like all signs, pointing to this, and um, I felt like it was meant to be. There was some divine intervention and putting me on this path. And then I realized afterward, coaching uh, was the meeting place of all my past experiences and all my education, all my training, and what I was most interested in, and what from neuroscience to emotional intelligence, metaphysics, manifesting, leadership, difficult conversations. That was all the stuff I was really interested in, and coaching was the meeting place of that, and recognizing that I could help people who was in terms of my awareness, in terms of my acceptance, in terms of my connection to something greater.
Yeah, that's really cool, especially look at how everything kinda lined up to put
Hmm.
you in that place. Do you see
Yeah.
yourself doing coaching far into the future?
No, I don't know. Life is funny. If I would have predicted I would be doing this 10 years ago, or even 15, 10, 15 years ago, uh, I wouldn't have guessed it, that I would have a coaching practice. And that's how I would be living out my purpose. So life is funny in that way. Um, right now it's very fulfilling. Right now there's some things I want to try, that I'm excited about. I'm lo I've worked on an app the last couple of years for this coaching program I have called the Hero's Journey Process, and I take any growth-minded men through it, and I have groups of men that I take through it. Um, and there's another product I'm working on for dads, because I have 2 young kids, a 5-year-old and a 7-month-old, and that's been my growth edge the last couple of years. And, yeah, I'm excited to launch that product as well. But who knows, life has a funny way of throwing you twists and curveballs and opportunities.
Yeah, yeah, it never seems to be just how you planned out. I realize I can try and plan exactly what's gonna happen, or I can just take action. No, I've got ideas of where I want the work that I'm doing to go. It's more like I'm gonna take action and then it's gonna lead where it needs to be.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to follow your heart. What is exciting to you? And you asked that question earlier of like, okay, how do you start taking action? Action happens when your excitement is greater than the fear. They're both in there, right? As you know from probably starting this, right? There's both excitement and there's fear. But when the excitement becomes greater than the fear, that's when it's a great time to start taking action. And yeah, so following, what your heart is excited about. I mean, I am a engineer, turned project manager, turned 4-hour work week entrepreneur, and a couple other things and a couple other accolades in there along the way. Coach, leadership coach, and life coach for men. I mean, I would not have expected this, when I was in college or high school or so. I think the most important thing is just to follow your heart and see where that leads you. Are you
Yeah.
familiar with The Alchemist, the book The Alchemist?
No, I've seen it, but I haven't read it.
Okay. It's one of those books that I have reread, 4 or 5 times, especially when I'm not sure where to go with my life. And there's this passage in there uh, where, at its heart, The Alchemist is a book about the human experience, a book about spirituality. And there's this passage in there about how, your heart whispers to you. And there's a tendency as people get older to stop listening to the whispers. Well, if you stop listening to it, the whispers get quieter and quieter and quieter. So it's really important to listen to the whispers of the heart, even, you know, whether you're 20 or 40 or 60 or 80, to listen to those whispers because there's important information behind those.
Yeah. Yeah, if someone you're talking about how it gets quieter and quieter. If someone feels like they don't know what they want anymore, what advice would you give to them?
Yeah, specifically for young men, if they don't know, Um, Go find your joy. Go find what find fun, right? Whether that's traveling, um, I would say wholesome fun, because it's really easy to get into drugs or alcohol or porn or sex or women chasing or whatever it is, and those are kind of false pursuits, right? Those are false peaks with limited payoff. But yeah, so go find what brings you deep, lasting joy. Serving others, right? Giving speeches, um, whatever it is. Go find what you enjoy and have fun, and then follow that thread.
Yeah. Yeah, I like how you said lasting joy because there's definitely a difference between the instant gratification with the things you're talking about versus what actually is going to build, a life that you really enjoy living. Yeah. Yeah. So as a coach, what is kind of the process you take your clients through, from the start to the end?
Yeah. Um, every person is different. And so I work with growth-minded men, usually, not exclusively, but usually. Um, and so everyone comes with a different issue, right? Maybe it's they're having an issue with their wife, or they're not happy at work. Um, but ultimately, the general process I use, the first step is to create a vision. 3, 5, 10 year, it doesn't matter. Create a vision of, you know, who you want to be, who you want to surround yourself with, what you want to be doing, what your body wants to look like, where you want to be living. First step is to create that vision. And then from that vision, creating goals. And so creating SMART goals or whatever goal setting method you need, but creating some tangible goals. I don't like goals shorter than 6 months because it's hard to really make any impactful change in less than 6 months. I like 6 to 12 month goals, kind of midterm goals. Um, and then from those goals, follow behaviors, right? Follow the inspiration and motivation to start a meditation journaling practice, to start going to the gym. And with any practice, a little bit of something is better than a whole lot of nothing. Just go to the gym once. Just meditate once. Just journal once. Just call up that friend once, right? Just ask that lady out on a date once. Whatever it might be. Just get going. And then once we have created the vision and the goals, once I've done that with a client, then um, we try to bring awareness to their beliefs, to their behaviors, and to their voices that are getting in the way of their goals and their vision. So limiting beliefs, I call the voices saboteur voices, and behaviors I call distractions, right? Women, sex, money, alcohol, fame, people pleasing, whatever it might be. Um, yeah, and so then we work on that. And each call could be, it depends on the kind of client I'm working with. One-on-one calls are typically, for my one-on-one clients, are typically, um, we work towards the goals and the vision. My coaching program is very structured, so that's very different. It requires 7 to 10 hours of work a week, and it's exercises and readings and podcasts and videos, um, and meditation journaling practices. So that's very structured. So there's a very specific arc of that program. But for the one-on-one clients, it's generally, vision goals, and then, working on building awareness.
Yeah. Yeah. And what are the benefits of doing that with a coach versus just, journaling and pondering on what your vision is and then looking at the steps you'd need to take to build that?
Yeah. Um, you know, Kudos to anyone that can do it on their own. I don't know about you, but I've needed a lot of help along the way. So, um, that's what coaches are. Coaches are another form of help. So what I tell people is get as much help as you possibly can. You know, um, Accountability is like layers of an onion. The more layers you have, the more likely you're going to hold yourself accountable, right? So whether it's a therapist or coach or men's group or close friends that are willing to be honest with you, or parents whose values and judgment you trust. Surround yourself with people who can support you. I think what's great about coaching is, for a lot of my clients, they might not have anyone on their team. They might feel rather alone. It's lonely at the top sometimes, and um, and I may be the only person on their team. And so that's one nice thing about coaching is like, yeah, I am yes, I'm being paid, but I care for you and I care about you and I want you to be successful. And that's my job as a coach is to help you be successful in whatever way I can. Um, Accountability. I think that's an important piece of what I bring to conversations. Yeah, we have deep conversations on our calls, but also we're checking in on the things you said you were going to do. Did you do those things? Right. Um, and also, I've spent a better part of a decade on um, working on myself, and that is my craft. And I've learned things along the way. Um, that say someone whose day job is running a company, right, or going to college, that's their focus, and their focus isn't on self work and increasing awareness and increasing acceptance and creative potential. And I've done a lot of work in that regard, so that's kind of the expertise I bring to the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. Something I've noticed about you is everything you do seems to be the lens of, serving your clients and helping others. How come, why would you advise someone operates in that way versus, how can this benefit me? Because even before we started recording, you asked, what can I do to, make this a great podcast and stuff like that?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. I appreciate you noticing that, and it's something I've had to work on. Ultimately, I mean, ultimately, what I do and the reasons I do it are because I feel better doing it, right? Service feels good to me. Caring about others feels good to me. Whereas navel gazing, just thinking about myself, doesn't necessarily feel good to me, right? There's some reflection, some practice of mindfulness of what's going on in my body, what's going on in my head, but at some point that becomes self-defeating rather than self-serving. Um, so I had a mentor of mine. He was a former professor and an executive coach. And when I started coaching, he asked me, "What's your intention with coaching?" And I said, "Oh, to get clients, to make some money at this." And he said, "Okay, that I hear that's a goal. What's your intention?" I said, "To get clients." And he said, "No, your intention is to serve." And that that nugget of wisdom, um, I sat with it for a couple of years, and then one day, it was about 2 years later, just one day, before a call I was doing with a client, I shifted into a service mindset. I did this little meditation that I picked up along the way, um, and it was about serving the client. And when I did that, my business grew by double, like within the next month. Like just changing my mindset, the outward, the external also changed. Um, so I think, yeah, to summarize, I think there's two elements, like both, yeah, it feels good for me to be in service, to help others. Um, and also I think it's good business as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I've almost kind of thought that if you want to have the best life you can for yourself, you really got to operate in how you can serve other people because it does feel good and it is purposeful to be operating in that lens. And I think it's a consistent thing. Like you got to consistently work to view it and view success in that mindset.
Yeah, and I think there's a spectrum too, right? If on one end there is, someone who's just a narcissist, like navel gazing, right? And on the other end, there's a people pleaser, right? There's a healthy range somewhere in the middle. And so I'm coming from more of the let me be lean into more service end, right? More of the selfish end of the spectrum. And but I have clients who their conditioning through childhood, through from their parents, through their experiences, was more on the people pleasing end, right? Which is not healthy either. Um, so I think it's important to find that balance between serving others, helping others, and also serving yourself. Kind of like the masks on the airplane, right? You got to be able to put your own mask on first before you put it on a child, right? You can't. I can't help someone if I can't even help myself, right? So there is a good balance there.
Yeah. And if someone is, you know, afraid to take that step of acting in, purely client focused, and there's still the fulfilling your own needs, but advice would you give to someone who hasn't made that shift yet?
Yeah. So there's a fear of acting. A couple of questions I would ask. Um, there's like one tool which is okay, go to the worst case. If you act, what's the worst case? They say no, you fall flat on your face, you look stupid, whatever the reasons are, right? Um, when I launched my first company when I was 26, I uh, I left a six-figure job to go start a company in a totally different industry, and my fallback was, well, if I fail at this, I can always go back to what I was doing, right? Um, my wife, she's a financial planner, and that was her same experience. She was talking to a mentor of hers, and she was talking about how unhappy she was, and she was thinking about starting her own firm. And uh, the mentor said, "Well, what's the worst case? Like you fail, you go back to being unhappy working at someone else's firm, right?" Um, so that's one tool I could use. The other one, which I think helps give perspective to life, is what would your 80-year-old self, what will he wish you would have done? What comes up for you when I ask you that question?
Yeah, that's a lens that I've been looking through a lot more lately, and that's what's kind of inspired me to take action on the podcast and stuff like that. Because for a
Mhm.
while, I've always had this vision where I want to be I want to have a large online presence, and maybe motivational speaker type stuff like that. And I know I would definitely regret not pursuing stuff like that than I would if I do. Like the only risk if I pursue that is that like I gain knowledge and experience, and if it turns out not to be for me, then I know, but I would rather know that it wasn't for me than always wonder if my dreams are, what I actually want to do.
Yeah. I think that's a beautiful piece of wisdom that you already own, right? You've already experienced. The great thing about failures is that they can be turned into opportunities. If it weren't for the failure of my first company, then I would not have been able to create a 4-hour work week company. It was because of that company and me failing that I was able to succeed, right? The thing with regrets is you can't it's regrets only turn into sleepless nights, right? It's hard to turn a regret into an opportunity. Um, and so, yeah, it's way better to try something, follow your heart, try something and fail and learn from that failure than to sit at your desk, sit behind a wall, and not try and never know. That's the kind of stuff that keeps people up at night on their deathbeds is the not trying, the never knowing.
Yeah. Yeah, there's the Alex Hormozy quote I love. He says, like ask the girl, shoot the shot, start the business because you don't want to be 80 years old on your deathbed and have no cool stories to tell.
Yeah. At the very least, you'll have some cool stories. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's not a cool story to say what you could have done, but say what you actually did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now, what do you think? How's your perspective on what a life of success really is changed? From when you were my age to now, because you seem very, very grounded at this point in what your values are.
Yeah. I think I thought I would be happy in my 20s and yeah, maybe early 30s. I thought I would be happy if I made a bunch of money, if I didn't have to work making that money, if I had material things, nice cars, nice house, beautiful wife, whatever it was. I thought all of that would lead to happiness. And then when I realized this was my spiritual crisis, when I realized I had all those things, I had everything I could have wanted. I had a 4-hour work week business that I didn't work in that was making, good, plenty of money for what I needed and a beautiful wife and beautiful house and cars and all the stuff. Right. And I realized I wasn't, I wasn't happy. That wasn't fulfilling. Um, I had to find another way, and I had to go through the dark night of the soul to find some of that. So I think it's important. Success. It's easy. I do this even before this call. I was listening to some of your other podcasts, and there was this question of, "Oh, well, these people are way more successful than me. Should I be on this podcast? Am I good enough for this podcast?" Right? All of that. The great thing about success is we get to define it for ourselves, right? And for some people, not for me. For some people, that might be, you know, a billion in the bank or hundreds of millions or whatever that number is, right? I think that when they get there, they're going to realize that again, it's a false peak. It's not going to be that fulfilling when they get there. Um, so success for me. So I invite you and each one of your listeners to define success for themselves. I think after my experiences and my journey, success for me is, yeah, making enough money to um, live the kind of life that I want to live. I don't chase material pursuits. I like nice stuff, nice food, nice travel. Um, but so make enough money to live that kind of life. I think having having lots of love through family, through friendships, through children, um, that's that's success in my eyes, and having a connection with the people that I love and that love me, that's success. I think having your health, because if you don't have your health, you don't have your wealth. And how many people do you know where they work themselves to the bone and then they're 60, overweight, diabetes, for what? If you don't have your health, you don't have your wealth, right? And they missed out on opportunities on their life that they could have taken when they had their health, but they chose to work. So what does success look like? Yeah, I think success looks like following my passion, following my purpose, um, finding joy and gratitude every day. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I think those are some
that's
good
great.
starting metrics. There's probably a lot more and I could go on.
No, yeah, yeah. I think getting into the little metrics of what it exactly it looks like would be very complicated. But yeah, I love what you're saying. Um, what impact has your wife specifically had on your success and your happiness?
You've heard the term happy wife, happy life, right? Um, I think a twist on that. I mean, so I was married before, and was unhappy in that relationship, and I had other relationships, and I was unhappy in those. So, um, having someone who you are aligned with and you share a values and a vision, which I do with Sophia, my wife, is a game changer. Um, Being able to resolve conflict in a healthy way is a game changer. So I think my belief is this, and I might have seen studies on this too. The single largest indicator of happiness is is like a healthy marriage, is a healthy partnership. Um, Yeah, so I'm so thankful for her in my life, and so thankful for we're in alignment, and we're going on this big family adventure next year, and we're moving to Bali, and that's something we've been dreaming about for years, and talking about, and trying to find the right place, and we found a place we both love and want to do that, while our kids are young and have this adventure. Um, yes, so having an aligned partner in my life is I said it the other day, it's so nice not to have to worry about the relationship. I can focus on other things, right? I can focus on my business or my health or whatever it is, rather than having to invest so much time and in the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. What advice would you give, to me and to young men who they do want to, build a relationship like that later in their life? What kind of steps should they be taking to prepare now?
Yeah, my number one recommendation is do the self work, right? Bring awareness to the beliefs that are getting in your way, to the voices in your head, the self talk, the saboteurs that are getting in your way, and the behaviors, the distractions that are getting in your way. Um, and really shine a light on those. I wish I would have done that at a much younger age. I wish the coaching program I had now, I wish I had it in my MBA program, because it would have prevented a lot of bad decisions. I wish I had it in my undergrad program. So it's never too soon to do that work, and really looking at um, the conditioning that is running the program, in the background, the conditioning we receive from society, from teachers, from our parents, and bringing awareness to that. And then with that awareness, you can actively work to change it and choose something different.
Yeah, I think that's solid advice. You gotta work on yourself first, and that's why I realize if I wanna preparing for that later in life, I gotta start now and then level up. And eventually, when that does come, I want to be the kind of man that attracts someone that can, be a great, future mother to my future children, and that I can, just have as my partner eventually.
Yeah, yeah. It took it took me a long time and some false starts to figure that out. And you know what, Samuel? I believe you're going to do that. Yeah, I
Nice.
trust that you're gonna do that, and I'm excited for you and your journey, and yeah, the partner you get to attract into your life, because you attract people at your level, like your level of frequency, your level of yeah, you're at your level, right? So if you're able to raise your level, then you get to attract someone at a higher level.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Brian, it's been great talking to you today. Kind of last question here, and you kind of touched on this a little bit. If everyone listening were to take one step or one action, what would you recommend that be?
Take a moment to journal the thoughts that are bouncing around your head and notice what's different after you write those down. That's pretty small ask, right? Pretty small action,
Yeah,
very reasonable.
yeah. They take out a pen and paper or record an audio note on their phone right now and do that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
I call that
thank you for
taking out the
coming on.
trash.
Yeah, like a mind dump or something like that. Just get all the
Exact
thoughts out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian, for coming on today. It's been great to have you.
Yeah, thank you, Samuel, for having me, and, yeah, I wish you luck and success in the future as well.
Thank you.